Hi there, my name is Pat Fader, and I teach our Capstone Project class and our PowerShell class at MATC, as well as a number of Microsoft courses. So basically, I was thinking about the Capstone Project, and I got a great idea for a final exam for my PowerShell class. So I want to create a number of screencasts to prepare students for the final exam in PowerShell. So real quickly, the Capstone Project course, what we do in that is I have students spec out and configure a small um, network environment. So they, spec out a physical server. I have them set up some virtual machines, a couple domain controllers, and a client computer. And then with that environment, they'll do things like install Active Directory and create some organizational units, install users, configure users in their environments through group policies, set up DNS, DHCP, etc. So I thought, hey, what a great idea for a final exam for my capstone project class if I had students do part of this in PowerShell. Hence, I am recording this screencast down, preparing you for the final exam in ITNet 159. All right, so with that said, this first screencast, I want to just talk briefly about PowerShell, and then I'll get more into the configuration of our servers and domain controllers in the next screencast, or subsequent screencast. Real quickly, kind of like what is PowerShell? I should probably just jump to a virtual machine while I'm talking here. But basically, PowerShell is, well, what's a shell? I mean, PowerShell, what's a shell? Essentially, a shell is just a wrapper around an operating system. It can be GUI based or command line based. So you can make the argument that, this Windows Server operating system is a shell, and it provides a way for the user to get access to the file system and the services running on this computer. So there are GUI-based shells. There is also command line shells. So if we look at PowerShell on this server here, you probably already know all this, but I thought, you know what, let's just start from the beginning and work our way up. Okay, so here's a command line interface version of PowerShell. And PowerShell is actually built on top of the .NET framework, what's that mean? Well, I'm sure some of you, when you've gone to install a piece of software on your computer, you first had to update this .NET framework. The .NET framework contains a bunch of reusable code that software developers can use, so that when they're creating a new piece of software, they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can kind of build off what other people have created. That's our .NET framework. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that, but that is the Pat Fader simplified version of the .NET framework. So Microsoft basically built PowerShell just to help you automate administrative tasks on their operating systems, and it's grown. It's been fantastically well received to the point now that Microsoft wants all of their OSs to be completely configurable via PowerShell. Additionally, it's actually spanning multiple operating systems now. I believe PowerShell version 6 something is available that can be used to configure Mac OS as well as Linux-based computers. So how's that for PowerShell growing and increasing what you can do with it? It's worth mentioning that this is my command line interface. Actually, back up. So we control. We use in this PowerShell we have commands. They're called commandlets. And we could take a look at the commands on here. Get command type, commandlet. All right. I don't know. There's a lot on this server. Like about 600. I don't know how many. There's hundreds of commandlets, and as you install additional services and roles on the server, you would see the amount of commandlets increasing. Third parties can actually create can actually create commandlets to run within PowerShell as well. So it's just not like some proprietary thing. Actually, PowerShell has become open source, and I think that was because they wanted to make it able to, for more people to develop in that environment, as well as make it more cross-platform compatible. I mentioned that a shell can be command line based as well as GUI based. In PowerShell, this is my favorite. Instead of using the plain old command line interface, I really like using the ISE, Integrated Scripting Environment. And Let me just hit this. Let me just expand. Let me close this and expand our script pane. So essentially what you can do is you can write scripts up here, and then you can run them, and you'll see what they would look like. But you can see them execute below. So this really is helpful if you're creating a large script, or if you've got a couple hundred lines of commandlets that you want to run. If you want to run a PowerShell script, you don't want to sit and type them all in at this command prompt. That would take forever. But you can actually, you can actually just create a script. You can edit it, and you can run pieces of it here. And that's what I'll be doing in future screencasts. But we just briefly ran the get commandlet, and it's a little bit nicer here. Command type commandlet. You can kind of see how this ISC is helping me complete my command. So get command is a commandlet, and then I have a parameter command type I'm specifying, and more on that later. But anyways, I've typed this in. I can run it. That's pretty cool, right? As long as we're looking at it, I mean, one of the great things about PowerShell is you can take the output of one command and pipe it into another command. So for example, I could take, when I run this get command, it returns like 600 commandlets or whatever it is. I can take those 600 commandlets, I can pipe them, send it something else for additional processing, and I could just say measure object. I think that's it. Let's try it. So now when I run it, yeah, 634. There you go. And you can tell, obviously, you can tell that if I specified some additional parameters, I could get things like, if it was a numerical data set, I could average, sum, max, minimum, etc. So anyways, I don't want to get too much into it for now. I just wanted to show you talk a little bit about PowerShell. I wanted to talk about the ISC and why I think this is really, for me, I'm still learning PowerShell. There's so much for me to learn, but this is where I work. I prefer not to work just the plain command line environment. I've just got some notes here. Let me double check here if there's anything else I want to talk about. Wasn't a very, this is just getting us going. Oh, I just have a note here that to myself I wanted to mention that, a lot of what we're going to do, I had a student say, Pat, I'm trying to learn PowerShell at home on my home computer. What can I do with it? And, when you're learning when you're using PowerShell just on a single machine, there's not much of a wow factor there, because you're like, well, I think it's actually easier for me to go into File Explorer and right click on the folder and say new folder or new file versus using PowerShell. But the value of PowerShell increases as your environment increases. So I was trying to think of some examples of that. I was talking to one individual from Children's Hospital. They had a person there that wrote a PowerShell script to update a couple hundred servers. A new piece of software is coming up, so they needed to update the services, restart the machines, install the software, etc., etc., etc. So he wrote a PowerShell script to do it, and he actually did it in a fashion that the end users never saw any downtime. So he wrote this complex script to add services, restart machines at different times, and at the end of the day, they upgraded the software in their environment without any downtime, which is kind of a big deal. So that was a case where PowerShell is fantastic. Once you've written it, how nice to be able just to make a few modifications and run it again. So if this company releases a new piece of software, or they need to update their software, I'm sure they could leverage their script. I talked to another individual that did a consulting job with Barnes & Noble. Same kind of story. He basically took him 6 months to do it, but he created a pretty complex PowerShell script. But at the end of the day, he took a process that would take several days, whenever the Barnes & Noble rolled out a new store, did an upgrade, to a couple hours. So Barnes & Noble claims he saved them a couple $1 million with this, the first couple of years. So it's definitely, you can do a lot with it. In our capstone, in our final exam, we're just basically looking at how do I configure a domain controller and a client and some of the services and roles on them. So it's not super complex, but you need to learn how to crawl before you can walk, and that's what these screencasts are designed for. So thanks for watching this, and have a great day.